find such a love at our age. Whoever thought we could dance on?
Welcome to Couples Therapy in 7 Words. I'm your co-host, Judy Alexander, and I'm here with my husband, Dr. Bruce Chalmer.
Well, hello, Judy. Hello, viewers and listeners. Judy, I want to comment on something right off the get-go, because last time you had a great big bandage on your nose.
I did.
Now you just have little steri strips on your nose.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Want to tell people what that's about?
Yeah, well, for those of you who are watching this rather than listening, I had Mohs surgery to remove a basal cell carcinoma.
Yep.
So hopefully I look better this week than I did last
You
week.
look beautiful last week, and you look beautiful now. But indeed, yes, your nose looks a lot better. it's on the mend.
Right.
That's really good.
On the mend.
Of course, then in exchange for that, you have a cold, which
Well,
whatever
who knows where I
comes
picked
with the
that
territory.
one up, probably in the hospital.
Who knows? Anyway, folks, tell people what the title of today's episode is.
Yes, Accountability and Relationships, an interview with Robert Hunt.
We just finished that interview, a really fun interview.
Yeah, he's got some great ideas.
All about accountability, and he's written a book about accountability, and and he is one of those. I mean, he's like a business motivator type guy. That's his thing.
Yeah, I'd say very dynamic.
Yeah, and he's very dynamic in that way, and we applied some of that to talking about couple relationships and family relationships too. So check that out. Before we send you to that interview, of course, those of you who are regular viewers and listeners, we have to tell you all about our exciting books.
Right.
Why don't we start? Well, you decide what we start with.
Okay, well, why don't we start with Betrayal and Forgiveness, How to Navigate the Turmoil and Learn to Trust Again. This is really doing well on the book lists, on the Kindle copy and the audio.
And
So
the
it's been
paperback as
selling
well,
quite
actually.
well.
Yeah, it's been selling well, and in part because I think I learned a couple things through all of these books about like how to promote it to whom.
Right.
And so people are actually responding. I'm really pleased with that. And do pick that up. This particular book, it's not merely that folks are buying the book. What I keep noticing is people who are coming to my practice are saying, well, I saw your book.
Right.
And it's interesting because, it's about betrayal and forgiveness. I mean, a large proportion of the folks who come to see me, couples who come to see me in the first session, are dealing with something in the general area of betrayal,
Sure.
one kind or another. And so it's not surprising that they find that's a very useful book. I also have a couple other books that I have written as well.
Right. The previous book, It's Not About Communication, Why Everything You Know About Couples Therapy is Wrong.
And that one's really all about how do you make use of couples therapy? What are some of the myths of couples therapy? What are some ways that you can evaluate how well it's going and, ideally make better use of it? And so if you're into that sort of thing, that's the book for you. And
Reigniting the Spark, Why Stable Relationships Lose Intimacy and How to Get It Back.
yes, and as Judy always likes to say, that's the book that started the podcast.
That
right?
is
That's,
the book that started it all. Yes.
because indeed that came out just in time for the pandemic. And
That's right. Just in time for COVID.
yes, so we ended up starting this podcast. And do tell folks about our podcast. Let people know about it and rate us and share it and all that kind of good stuff that folks do on social media. Let's tell people about your book.
Yes. The Blue Tent, Erotic Tales from the Bible,
Yes.
which I like to call sexual midrash, but I was with some friends yesterday, and she liked calling it biblical porn. So I said, that'll probably sell better if I
Biblical
start
porn.
calling it that.
Yeah, I mean, porn usually, am I right about this? Porn usually implies images, and this is erotica.
Yes, this is erotica.
I don't know if that's a valid distinction or not. But
Well, I'd like to
it's-
think so.
Yes, but it's
Yes.
biblical erotica, certainly. And if you want to call it
Biblical
biblical porn, sure, call it that. But, I want to, I don't want to mislead people, especially because our interviewee today is a very devout Christian.
Right.
And I don't want to offend any of the folks who are drawn to this particular podcast because, a lot of the folks he's going to be attracting to this podcast are. And I want to make a point about your book because it is indeed biblical erotica, which sounds like, to some people, sounds like an oxymoron. It's like, how can that be respectful? It's very, very deeply loving and respectful of the Bible and its characters. We are both practicing Jews and very deeply involved, and we're not doing anything that at least we would consider in any
No.
way disrespectful to
No,
our
not
faith
at all. It's
or
very
to Christian
respectful,
faith
and it
either.
draws not only on the actual Bible stories, but well, it's hard to explain midrash. It's interpretations of reading between the lines of what went on. So everything
Yeah.
I have in the book is based on midrash.
Exactly, yeah. So, look, if you're not into erotica, don't buy that book. But if you're into erotica and you also
Or
happen to be
curious.
religious or curious, I highly recommend that book. You can get it anywhere books are sold.
Hey, religious people have sex.
It, go figure. Religious. I will add to that. Religious people have sex and enjoy it. Even how
Yes,
about
they
that? So and should, in my humble opinion.
Absolutely.
So there we are.
Well,
So
let's get on with our interview.
let's get to the interview. We'll see you on the other side.
Our guest today is Robert J. Hunt. Robert is the accountability guy and the co-author of the book, Nobody Cares Until You Do. He is a business owner in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area and is an executive coach who runs CEO groups in Dallas-Fort Worth since 2013. Robert has been married for 25 years and has 2 adult children also living in Texas. He is passionate about his faith, his purpose, his family, and his quest to help people be their best. Robert, welcome to Couples Therapy in 7 Words.
Thank you so much.
Well, we're delighted to have you. We always like to start with the first question for our guests is, how did you get into the work you do? Tell us something about your own journey into what you do.
Yeah, my background was marketing and sales almost all my career. I moved to Texas in 2010 to continue to do marketing consulting, but I was losing my interest in that because people really didn't want to do it strategically. It was hard to find companies that really valued marketing other than have it as a task, build me a website, do a brochure, whatever. And I met this guy who had bought the franchise rights to peer groups here in DFW. And as he was telling me what these are like, I thought, so people pay you money to help them and care for them? Like, you get paid for that? And so,
What a concept.
yeah, right. And so I said, I got to do that. And so I quit my career and I changed at the age of 50 and went on to go do something completely different that I was horribly unqualified for and unprepared for. But I knew God was calling me into this new chapter in my life. That this is where I get to live out my personal purpose through my career. So every day is satisfying and fulfilling, and it's awesome. And I'm actually really good at it. At the beginning, I wasn't. I had no clue what I was doing. I had customers who were very kind and patient with me, and God gave me favor. But I totally screwed up meetings for the first year. I was so wrong in my perspective, and I had to learn the hard way how to run a group, how to coach people, how to listen well. And at the core of all that was this quest for accountability. Because in life, if we really want to be our best, we need accountability. And that's really what led me to this long time career with peer groups and ultimately to write the book, Nobody Cares.
So what do you mean by accountability?
Well, in the simplest terms, accountability means you own it. That's the easiest way to describe it. And we are good at being responsible, but that's different than accountable. Responsible means I showed up at work because you gave me a paycheck. That's fair. Accountable means that while I'm at work, I'm actually thinking about what's best for the company. I'm actually thinking about how do I help my coworkers. I'm actually caring for my customers. I don't need you there for 8 hours. I need you to be there and be focused and be careful and be thoughtful and be caring, because that's what makes the job that you do profitable, successful, functioning. And so I have this line between doing something and doing the thing is where we really see accountability start to shine.
So how do you change the culture in a company? Let's say if they just have people who've been coming in, doing their job, going home. How do you come in and change the culture in that company to help people be more accountable rather than responsible?
Yeah, great question. Nobody can hold anyone accountable. We talk about this. We say this as leaders. Oh, I'll hold my employees accountable. Really? How? You're going to babysit them? When they don't do it, you're going to fire them? Sometimes we do fire them, but then, hey, we're the one being accountable. They're just still taking their lack of accountability and going to the next company. And so really the only way to build a culture of accountability is to create a place where people want to be accountable because they care. It's that give a damn factor that most people just don't care because they've been burned. They've had bad bosses. They don't know where we're going. What are we doing anyway? And they're frustrated and they butt their heads against the wall to try and get anything done. Everyone feels like they're fighting for their own agenda. The leader of the company has to create a vision where people feel like, okay, wait, we're going to do this together, and you want me to be part of it, and you're going to listen to me, and you're going to care about what I think, and you're going to help me. Okay, I'm in. I'll
Mm.
show up and I'll do my best. But that's hard. And leaders say that takes too much effort. So just do your damn job or I'll find someone else. Well, that sounds great until you run out of people to find. And the hiring process is so engaging, so much work, and we're not being productive, and people are burned out and people are frustrated because they don't feel like they matter. And so it really has to come from the top. It has to be created this exciting culture, this vision of a culture that the leader starts, promotes, lives out, it reinforces with every decision, teaches the team what it looks like, reinforces it with them. And it's like anything. How many times you tell your kids to turn the light off? How many
Mm.
times you tell them to flush the toilet, brush your teeth, make your bed? I mean, it doesn't ever end. And we think we just hire someone. Well, they had a job before. They must know what they're doing, right? But they don't know how to do it your way, in your company, with your people. And it's a different thing. We've got to start thinking beyond just putting a body there. But
Mm.
it's driven from the top, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we've all been there. We've all worked for a place.
Everybody has. Sadly
Oh
to
yeah.
say, I think
If
most
you've been around long
businesses,
enough.
they
Yeah.
survive despite themselves.
Yeah.
And if you made a great widget, everybody wanted the widget, and then you grew and grew. So you needed some people, and you added people, and you added people, but you weren't ready to lead. You didn't have a plan for that. You just want to sell more widgets. And so it grows outside of our skill set. That's why people come to our peer groups, because they know they don't know everything. If
Yeah.
you think you
Mhm.
know everything, you're a liar or a fool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
reality is everything's changing daily. And at the
Mhm.
rapid speed of change, there is no way you're going to know everything. That's why you hire a bunch of people and say, hey, you're really smart, focus in this area, and you're really smart, focus in this area, and let's bring it together. And then you have to listen to them
Yeah.
Mm.
because you've hired them and you said, well, go be smart. And you constantly learn. And so the aggregate of all of us learning becomes like this. But when you stop learning, you stop listening to people, you start to really fall behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's helping people build relationships.
Yeah,
Really is what it comes
isn't
down
all of
to.
business about relationships?
Mhm.
Really?
You'd like to think
Artificial
so.
intelligence is a threat to some people because they think it's going to take over the world and it'll be like Terminator and robots and all that nonsense. But at the end of the day, it's all about relationships
Mhm.
and the trust that we build. You can't artificially intelligent build trust. You
Yeah.
can't really have relationships that are going to be replaced by AI. It's going to be a great optimization tool for repetitive work. Let's embrace it. Let's learn. But at the end of the day, we build business on trust. We build it on relationships with people.
Mhm.
Well, and that's, of course, our podcast is all about, especially couple relationships. That's what we talk about. And I was thinking as you were describing that, the parallel between the relationships one builds at work and family relationships. And you mentioned an example. It's like, how do you get your kids to do stuff? In part, it's about inviting them to have a sense of ownership. And, I like that parallel because there's some problems with that I think are partly insoluble, and they're sort of interesting because kids on the one hand will feel an ownership, but on the other hand, at least particularly in our culture, they as they get older, they start having one foot out the door.
Yeah.
And employees are not ever going to feel exactly the same as the owner of the company because they don't own the company.
Yeah.
So what you want to foster is a relationship where they feel an ownership for what they can actually own, but you also have to recognize there are some differences between the owners and the employees. And
Well,
I think it's true in families too.
if you look at the Maslow's pyramid of the hierarchy of needs, at the very base
Mhm.
is just food and shelter. So we show up with the paycheck. And the second level is I feel like I matter. I feel like I'm growing, I'm getting smarter, and people appreciate me. And so I stick around for that. At the very top of the pyramid is self-actualization.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so what you want is employees who self-actualize. They'll never care about it in the same way that the owner
Yeah.
cares, but they can care about it as much, if not more, than the owner if they self-actualize.
Yeah.
Take a look at a charity where people will go to a charity, give them money, show up and work for free, promote it, work really hard, do all this stuff because they believe in it and they
Mhm.
find significance through it. You have employees, you pay them money and they barely show up and they do a cruddy job and you look like, wait, why is it so hard? Because there's no vision. They're not excited about it. They don't find fulfillment in either the work they do or the company they work for. And I could be scrubbing toilets, working for but the people group that I love and I have joy at my work.
Hmm.
I could be doing the most mundane, repeat thing to do, but I'm with my friends 8 hours a day on the packing line. There's ways that I self-actualize by creating a place where people are free to be their best. But instead, we oppress them and we make it horrible and we have all this anger and tension, and they can't self-actualize in that place. But if you do it right, people can actually care for your company more than you care for it.
Yeah, and you hear stories of companies like that where people are just dedicated. You
Yeah,
know,
because they
yeah,
feel valued.
yeah,
And I think
exactly.
that's what a lot of it comes down to.
Yeah.
Whether you're the person at the top or you're the one, like you said, scrubbing toilets. If you feel valued, you're going to do a much better job at whatever it is that you're doing.
And
I
you're
think
going to stay.
Right.
Yeah.
that's the same kind of freedom we have to teach our children as couples. My beautiful wife, Kathy, and I have been married 25 years, and I love her. She's my best friend. And we still have arguments. We still disagree about stuff. We don't always see things the same, but we have agreed that we want to honor the Lord through our marriage and in our lives, and we want to raise godly children. So, what does that look like to do that and visions what it looks like, and then just work backwards? That's like
Hmm.
how you have a business. Where do I want to be? I'll do this. Let's work backwards.
Yeah.
And so we do things, we have intentionality, we talk about things, we challenge, we go and have experiences and we build. But at the end of the day, my son James, who's 22, is wrapping up his last year of college. He has to make his own path. He has to make his own decisions.
Mhm.
And if he's anything like me, he'll go through this whole time of thinking his parents are dumb as a box of rocks. And then at
Well,
some point he'll get out.
because actually we are. And let's face it, I recognize that when it's sort of like, well, first I was thinking, oh, they're just adolescents and they think we're, full of baloney. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, we are full of baloney. And then I kind of relax about that and then we're all okay, but that takes, our kids are much older, and by the time they get to adults, you sort of all realize that, oh, the reason they thought I was full of baloney is that I am full of baloney, but we can kind of work with that. I'm not only
Yeah.
full of baloney, so.
Well, I know you're humorous in that, but at the end of the day, we actually have real jobs that people come to us and count on us. We've successfully managed marriage. We've handled all the conflicts of life for the last 61 years. I probably might know something.
Mhm.
And so for the journey that a child goes through where they have to stretch their wings and push back on all kinds of things, your faith, your family, the government, whatever things you've been taught, do I really believe that? That's healthy. That's good. Then you
Mhm.
really own it at some point. It's not your parents' faith, it's your faith.
Mhm.
I love that story where the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, was Jesus talks to her and engages her. She was not someone you're supposed to talk to. She was the kind of woman that came to the well in the middle of the day where no one else would be there, so she could avoid running into other people. And she was a Samaritan, so the Jewish people didn't even talk to them. And here Jesus is hanging out and talking to her, and he connects with her and he validates her and finds a way for her to feel significant. And so I think we get to a place where we have pushed away from things, we have challenged things, and we flipped the narrative. And but we own it. We get to this place where it becomes a conversation where we genuinely, I want to be curious and make my own decision. And I think that's by living in a way that's counterintuitive to the way our parents maybe raised us,
Mhm.
giving us a little bit more grace, a little bit more listening. I think there's ways to help them through that journey.
Mm. So I want to turn the conversation specifically to marriage. Like, how is accountability important in a marriage, do you think?
I mean, I could easier answer, how is it not? Um,
How might it
it-
not be? I can't imagine, but go ahead.
yeah, in the definition of accountability is you own it. And
Mhm.
so when you're married to someone, you can't take sides and you can't divide up the territory and you can't say this is your job and you can't say I'll deal with this and you deal with that. We got to do this together.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, we're both responsible for everything. There's nothing that we're not going to have to deal with. But it's one thing to say, well, I tried this and stop. That's responsible. Accountable is to say, it's not done yet. It's not right. We got to keep going. And
Mhm.
that means is we have awkward conversations, or maybe we go to a counselor, or maybe we invite a financial consultant who will come and look at our finances and give us a place to be accountable to someone. That's what Kathy and I did. We outlined this in the book. At one point, we owed $90,000 in debt, and we were drowning in this debt. And we fought and had stress and made decisions in a panic mindset. We were angry at God. We were angry at the world. We were angry at everything business because nothing was going our way. And together we had to decide, what do we want our lives to look like? what really, really matters. And it was January of 2019 where we sat in our office and whiteboarded out all the things we cared about. And we agreed as a couple that we want to please the Lord with our lives. And we're not doing that because we're angry at God, we're angry at the world. We've got to change something. And through that journey in 2019, we finally came to the conclusion that we would sell our house and downsize and start over and use that money to pay off our debt.
Mm.
And that really was a horrible journey. We hated it. We hated giving up our beautiful home. But if I didn't have a beautiful wife who believed in me and supported me and shared the vision of honoring God in our lives above our stuff, I could have never pulled that off. We could have never pulled that off.
Mhm.
You know, my wife found her identity in our home. I just slept there. I didn't really care much about how the living room looked or whether we had this or that, but she really, really did.
So that was a much bigger sacrifice for her.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
was. Yeah. And for me, it was ego and pride that, you know, I had to tell my customers, yeah, we're moving. I had to tell my neighbors we're moving because we're heavy in debt. I
Mm.
had to admit to people in the business world that I was not responsible enough to keep things going, but I'm now accountable for the result. And so it was embarrassing, it was humbling, but it was cathartic because once we went through there and conquered that, man, we felt so much peace in our lives.
Mhm.
The removal of the debt and the clarity that came from not having that hang over our heads every day, and the peace and the joy, and we did it together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so if we weren't on the same page, I could have never pulled that off. She
Mm.
could have easily said, "Hey, you built this debt, you fix it. You know,
Yeah.
I deserve this house. This is my house. You go find another place." Like she could have done all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I think accountability has to be shared in a marriage. It has to be the same mindset. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, that that phenomenon of recognizing, wow, whatever problems exist are our problems. And if you're not happy with something, then we are not happy with something.
Yeah.
It's like if there's something that needs to be fixed, and I see this all the time. I'm between the two of us. I'm the one who I'm the therapist. Judy's the real person. She's a retired educator and has all kinds of other skills, but I'm the one who's the therapist. So I see couples and they will often come in and a lot of their problem is this sense of you know well, I own this and you own that, or
Mhm.
they don't have that shared sense.
They're not a team.
They're not a team. They're not
Yeah.
feeling like and so
Yeah.
very often in couples therapy, and this is usually gendered in a particular direction, the woman will be saying, I'm not happy, I want to do couples therapy. The guy will be saying, well, I'm fine, so you're the one who's not happy, you go fix it.
You're the one with the
You're the one
problem.
with the problem. Yeah, that's a classic. I just saw that with a couple this week, actually. And it's funny because the couple I saw earlier in the week, they were talking about the guy was saying, well, I did realize that if she's not happy, then we have a problem. He got that, but he
Yeah.
still didn't get the bit about, I don't know why she's not happy. He didn't realize, dude, maybe it's you. Maybe you have something to do with that. That sense of shared accountability, what you were describing, you and your wife have. That's a lot of the work initially is getting both parties to that. It's
Yeah.
saying, oh, we have a joint problem here. And, I will note sometimes the solution to joint accountability, they end up breaking up. It's a bummer when that happens. My bias is toward helping people stay together. But sometimes that happens because they'll encounter something that is a genuine deal breaker. It just is something they can't both live with.
Mm.
A classic on that one is a couple, usually a young couple, where one, they didn't talk about this enough beforehand. One of them absolutely wants to have kids and the other absolutely doesn't.
Yeah.
You can't compromise on that. You can't sort of have a kid,
Right. Right.
have a kid or you don't have a kid. And two loving, good people who bump into something like that to be accountable have to recognize, oh my God, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And we've seen other examples of that as
Mhm.
well. So, that sense of shared accountability is kind of, once you have that, well, our little slogan, be kind, don't panic, and have faith. The be kind part, when I talk about kindness, I'm not talking just about being nice. I'm talking about the root of kind is kin. Be kin. Have that feeling that you are a team. You are in the same tribe. You're in the same,
Family.
same family, exactly. And when you have that, I think that maps pretty well onto what you're talking about in terms of shared accountability.
And Kathy and I, when we got married, I'd been married once before and had a 2-year-old daughter when I got divorced. And by the time I got married, she was 6. And Kathy and I married now 25 years. But when I married Kathy, I said, hey, I'm not going to have any more kids.
Mm.
And part of that was just my heart was so hurt. I couldn't really, really trust. I mean, I've known Kathy since I was in high school and I really loved her, but I was so skeptical of being screwed over by a woman again that I just thought, man, I'm never going to get married. Then after a couple of years of being with Kathy and spending time with her and seeing how she always put Lauren and I first, I really felt I want to take a risk. I want to take a
Mhm.
chance. But I wasn't completely confident that I wouldn't get screwed again. It
Mhm.
just was so out of left field that in my heart, that sting was still there. So I said, we're not going to have kids. I'm not going to have any more kids. And she said, okay, I want to be married to you. We already
Ah,
have a daughter, so we'll raise
mhm.
her together. And that was her attitude because she wanted to be married to me. After about a year or so of being married to Kathy, I just kept having this feeling, maybe it was driven by the Lord, that just said, she's a great mom. Why don't you let her have a child of her own? And
Mhm.
whether that was just the releasing of the lack of trust or whatever. And I said, hey, I would really like to have a child with you if you're up for that. But she married me knowing the answer was no, and she never asked
Mhm.
again, and she didn't push me, but it was me feeling I want to see Kathy have the joy of giving birth and have a child with her. So I think anything's possible. If you have that couple that says, hey, we talked about it and we don't agree on the kid thing, you did agree to get married,
Mhm.
well, let's say you agree to have kids, but you can never have a kid. Then you're gonna get
That often
divorced then,
happens
or
too. Yeah.
let's say that, well, then we'll adopt. Okay, well, you adopt, and boy, adoption is a lot of hard work. Are you sure you're up for that? And
Mhm.
so I don't know. I guess I think it really comes back to the principle of accountability is you own it. And the four things that are victim mindset and opposite of accountability are blame, excuse, say I can't, or wait and hope it gets better.
Mhm.
And if you're looking at your life and you can plug in even one of those four things into the story, you're not owning it. You're not
Mhm.
accountable. And so it is hard in life. We're not even aware of when we're playing a victim. We're so used to it. Everyone complains about their boss. It's a horrible boss. Yeah, you have a horrible boss. Everyone complains about their kids, makes excuses for why they don't manage their finances well, or say, I can't take a job that pays less because I'd really enjoy it, but I have this lifestyle. All these things that we are like slaves to keep us a victim in life. But
Mhm.
if you look at that and go, look, I can take a job that pays less. I just got to move out of this house. I mean,
Mhm.
do you really want that job? Is that what gives you joy? Is that your passion? I have a friend who runs a homeless center in Dallas. He could make bank. In his last job, he was an insurance guy. He made a ton of money.
Mhm.
He could make a ton of money, but he gave it all up to go run a homeless center. And his money's super tight, but he's the coolest dude ever. And he's
Mhm.
living his joy, his skill, his passion. He has a passion to care for homeless people. So he has decided, yes, I like to have a lifestyle, but I'm going to give it up because I'm going to chase my dream. So when you say you can't, you're really saying I won't. And
Right.
if you
Mhm.
don't want to, then don't. That's up to you. But don't say I can't. That makes you look like a prisoner. You are
Mhm.
able to do it if you wanted to. So we just watch all these things in our lives and we saw this stuff going on. And the book just outlines all these little traps you don't think about that they're there, they're subtle. And it's that turning point in your life where you finally go, look, nobody cares. Nobody cares you're fat, broke, unhappy in your marriage, hate your kids, hate your job. Nobody cares unless you care enough to do
Mhm.
something about it. And when you do, you gain the power to do something. Before that, you're a victim, a prisoner to your circumstances. But when you take it back, you now own it. You could do anything you want. It
Mhm.
may be hard, but it's hard
Mhm.
being a victim. You choose hard being a victim or hard on the road towards a victorious life of joy and satisfaction. I'll choose
Mhm.
this one.
Yeah.
I'm reminded, Viktor Frankl's point when Viktor Frankl was in Auschwitz, and was one of very, very few people who were the particular place he was and survived. And of course, he couldn't possibly control those circumstances, but the one circumstance he could control is how he approached it.
Yeah,
Knowing
yeah,
full well it would, for many, many, many people, it didn't
yeah,
save their life. They had no control over that. There were monsters who were oppressing them
yeah,
and murdering them, but they could find meaning anyway. And even in circumstances like that, and of course, he wrote about that, and it's
Man's search
very
for meaning.
man's search for meaning. And I just reread that last year for the first time in decades, and it
Well,
Mm.
was
we
just,
always say that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so yesterday I spoke at a group for people who are in job transition, a couple hundred people in a room, all trying to figure out how to get a job and what to do, trying to support and encourage each other. And I asked them the question, are you living the life that you really want? They looked at me and laughed. We're all out of a job. What are you talking about? I
Mhm.
said, just because you're out of a job doesn't mean you can't live the life you want. I mean, I want to have a castle on top of a hill with many maidservants that come around, and I'd like to have all the cat. That's what I want. But what do I really want? I want to go to bed at night with a woman who loves me and have her in my arms and have her say, I love you. I want kids who are nice and not mean and ugly and not self-destructive. I don't need much. So when you really look at your life, and you're out of a job, you could still have the life you want if you choose to look at it as this is just a downtime. This is a thing I'm going to go through and I'll get through it and I'll get to the next thing. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen. The moment you get your job, you're going to be super busy trying to earn all the respect and appreciation and of this new job. You'll put in overtime, you'll work long days, you'll miss the kids' ball games. You'll come home stressed about the new team and the project you're doing. And it'll be all this stress and strain. It'll affect your family and you'll miss it. Well, then can you be happy then? Well, you're not happy when you're not unemployed. When you're unemployed, and you're not happy when you have a job. Are you just not happy? And this is
Mm.
where satisfaction comes in. You get to decide where you're satisfied in life. And if you're not satisfied, what are you willing to do about it?
Mhm.
But either way, you got to own it. You got
Yeah.
to be real about what it is, and you got to choose. I'm going to pursue the life I want, whether I have a job or not, whether I have kids or not, whether my marriage is good or not. I'm going to pursue the life I want.
Mm.
How do you get to that point, though? Most people have to go through the hard knock life to get there.
Yeah.
So how do you change somebody's mindset when
For
you're
us, it was when the pain of where you are is worse than the pain of where you have to go, you
Mhm.
will change.
Mhm.
And
That's
that's kind of
often what
rock
gets people
bottom.
to show up in my office, actually. The pain of the situation they're in, because they've often been in that situation for decades.
Yeah.
When the pain exceeds the fear, the fear
Yeah.
of what might happen, when the pain is too great, that's when people are going to take action.
And that's usually the normal way. I
Mhm.
would prefer the way where you have an exciting vision for your life that you're
Of course.
chasing. For
Yeah.
me, I know my personal purpose in life. At the very top of it is to honor God with the life he's given me because he's given me a great life and he deserves a good return. The second role of that is to honor my family and care for them and serve my wife and protect my kids and teach them and help them. And then to be responsible in the society I live in and to serve and care for them. And a job, there's that,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But the in my personal purpose that's really defined for me, Robert Hunt, is I help people remove obstacles that keep them from being their best. So since that is my purpose in life, when I found a job that let me do that, even though it was going to be a really hard journey, I had no clue how to do it and I wasn't going to get paid. I had to earn all my own money. There was no salary. I went from having really good money to having no money for a lot of years, but I knew this is what I wanted to do. And it drove me because of the passion and the vision of what I was going to accomplish. So for me, I would always challenge people, start with your purpose. Know your why. Know why you exist. Why did God put you here on this earth? What are you supposed to do with your life? And go chase it with everything you've got. You got one shot at it. That's it. Don't
Mhm.
waste it. Don't live with regrets. I'd rather live with blowing it, making mistakes, having to
Mm.
start over, fixing things than to live with regret.
Yeah, it was interesting what you said about, going into something that you're passionate about, knowing at first you didn't know what you were doing. I
Yeah.
can really relate to that because
Mhm.
that's how I got into being a therapist. And nobody knows how to be a therapist until you've done it for a while. That's just you don't learn it in school. You learn it
Yeah.
by doing it, of
Yeah.
course. And you have to be willing to not be very good at it at first, and then and learn from all of those times when you say, "Ooh, I kind of blew that one." And that's how you learn that stuff. And that does
Yeah.
require, among other things, it requires some courage, right? You have to be
Most
willing
jobs are
to,
like that
yeah,
though. It's
yeah.
just that we don't have a solopreneur role. In most companies, if you don't know exactly what you're doing too well, there's enough team to help fix it, right? But you
Mm.
and I, it's us. We work
Mhm.
for us, and I'm really my only employee. My wife is my business partner, but I'm the one in the fields doing the work, talking to people all day. If I screw up, it's on me.
Mhm.
There's no one to help pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
And so it is a lot more pressure. But in business, every job out there, you're going to learn as you go. I
Mhm.
have a construction company client that has a lot of people out going out doing different things, and they'll bring someone in from another construction company to come work for them, and they'll make all these goofy mistakes. And I kept saying, we really need an onboarding program because
Mm.
you're bringing people in who are smart enough that you want to hire them, but they don't seem to be good employees. Why? You don't take time to teach them your core values and the way we roll. You don't even teach them the way we do things here. One of them they had a project where they poured a bunch of concrete and it wasn't done right, and they had to take it all back out again. That's a lot of
Ooh,
money and a lot of time.
yeah.
But the
Mhm.
guy who did it came from another company, and that company, that's
That's how
how
they
they
did it.
did it.
Yeah.
So he's not an idiot. He's
Mhm.
doing it the way he knows. But you didn't take the time as a company to say, well, here we follow this philosophy of
Mhm.
doing things. And
Yeah,
so
and
you
to
don't
it's
take
it
that time.
yeah, to recognize that your client had to be willing to look at what he was doing, and be able to say, oh, it's not just that I keep hiring idiots. Actually, I'm not hiring idiots. I'm hiring perfectly intelligent people. They just don't know, this is on me. Like you're saying,
How
take
we roll
accountability.
here.
This is how we do it. The reason this is happening is I'm not doing some stuff I could do.
Yeah.
And that's the essence of accountability. It sounds like that's what that's about.
Yeah, and I think us as a couple is the same way. I
Mhm.
watched a lot of really neat people as a young man when I got married, watched how they ran their marriages, and I learned, and I thought, I don't want to be like that guy.
Mm.
And there
Mhm.
were some things I thought, oh, I like that a lot. I call my wife my beautiful wife all the time. That word beautiful goes with the word wife in my world
Mm.
because she is beautiful. But I had a friend, Ray Lippig, and Ray worked for Boeing, and he called his wife the little lady. And she was like 6'5". She was huge, you know. But he always called her a little lady. And I thought, how endearing. That's such a sweet thing. And I thought Kathy deserves the moniker beautiful connected
Uh,
to a named wife. So, we learn by watching other people around us, but at the end of the day, we're going to make a lot of mistakes. That's why you got to own it. Good or
mhm.
bad, it's your junk. But isn't it cool to have the chance to learn and practice and get better?
Mhm.
To think you're just going to knock it out the first time is foolishness. Pick any topic at all. You're going to have to learn. And even if you already know it, it's changing. And the
Mm.
way we do things a year ago doesn't work today. So you're constantly having chances to screw up. We got to give ourselves grace, but we also got to realize that one way or another, we own it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
one of the books I wrote, the second book I wrote on couples therapy is called "It's Not About Communication: Why Everything You Know About Couples Therapy Is Wrong." And in the one of the last chapters, I point out, incidentally, that applies to me too. Everything I know about couples therapy is wrong too, which is another way of kind of saying what you're saying. It's like I'm not claiming I don't have good ideas. I wouldn't be writing books if I didn't think I had good ideas,
Yeah.
but I better not hang on to my ideas so tightly that they turn into ideologies, because then I'm I'm going to be defending myself instead of actually listening to, oh, I could learn something here. You
Yeah.
know, I have ideas, but they better be open to other ideas.
Yep.
And that's, it's funny. I was just reading a, review of a book by Malcolm Gladwell.
Mhm.
You know who he is, the
Do.
journalist. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I haven't read this recent book of his, but the review is pointing out, he was saying, yeah, I try to hold my ideas loosely. One of the things he does in this recent book, I think it's called Revenge of the Tipping Point. He goes back and criticizes his own ideas back in the book, The Tipping
Oh,
Point,
that's awesome.
some of which he's completely repudiated.
That's
And
awesome.
he points out, yeah, if you hang on to your ideas too tightly, then you're going to turn into an ideologue. At least that's the
Mhm.
way I would put it.
Uh-huh.
And it's, then those ideas become caricatures of whatever they started out from.
Mm.
If you hang on, if you defend the ideas as opposed to saying, oh, here's some ideas, but here's some other ideas. Isn't that interesting? Ideas open you up, ideologies shut you down. And so, the accountability, I could say, just based on what you're saying, Robert, accountability is about letting your ideas be ideas, not ideologies, being open to the possibility that, oh, maybe I should reconsider some stuff.
Yeah, we
That's,
wanted to give people
yeah.
tools to at least be aware of where do you play a victim in your life that holds you back? What's the turning point? And then what does it look like to have a future? And
Mhm.
so this book is really simple. Heck, we wrote it. It can't be that complicated. It's a simple book of steps and stories, and we walk you through the stages of being aware of where you're playing a victim, get you to get to that turning point moment, and then say, let's practice it in one area of your life. Let's just take one area. We have you take a satisfaction assessment in the book. It's these two little wheels that you
Mhm.
score how satisfied you are in life. And you could do it online too on our website. So you don't have to buy the book to do it. You take the satisfaction assessment and then look at it and go, look, I'm not satisfied here, here, and here, here. Okay, why? Well, I
Mhm.
don't like this, and this. Okay, is that blame? Is that excuse? Is that saying you can't? Is that waiting and hoping? And once you see, oh my gosh, I'm holding myself back from where I could be more satisfied, I'm the cause of the lack of satisfaction.
Mhm.
So now there's the light bulb, you're aware. Now, what's the deal? Where do I go? All right, acknowledge reality, embrace the suck, find a solution, and make it happen. And those are very intentional, those processes, because you got to really admit this is where we're at. Kathy and I looked around and said we owe $90,000 in debt. Well, I got a house. That's reality. We
Yeah.
could sell it. Well, that sucked. And that's why we called the chapter Embrace the Suck,
Embrace
because
the Suck.
Embrace the suck. I like that.
I often give similar advice. Yes.
It may suck, but it sucked what we were doing before anyway. This is a different suck. This suck was going to be short term. We were going to go to good stuff. So we made the plan, sold a house, found this place we're living now, moved into a rental, used all that money to pay off our debt free. COVID hit, shut down the world. We started over. And so it was beautiful just how that process was lived out. We watched it. We saw the traps. We saw how it worked. And we document all this in the book, along with my co-author, Salem, who talks about very vulnerably his own journeys and struggles, where he tried to kill himself at one point, and the struggles that he has in divorce and being in the military. And we're just trying to give you enough examples and stories that will motivate you to go, okay, if those two knuckleheads can do it, I can do it. And that's our hope.
So how can people get in touch with you, and how can people get a hold of your book?
Yeah, we're on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, Target, all that stuff. But you can go to our website. We prefer that because then we can send you an autographed copy of our book and some notes inside of it. That's at nobodycaresbook.com. That's our book. And then you can take the satisfaction assessment online. Maybe you don't want to score it in the book where your wife sees it and sees, that you're not happy with your marriage. Maybe you want to do it somewhere else separately where you have privacy. That's fine. Go to our website, take it online, and then just, take a screenshot and tuck it away somewhere. Or if you wanted to, for this podcast, I created a unique website called nobodycarespod.com for pod. And if you use the code word couples, I will mail a free copy of my book to the first 2 people who fill out the contact form with their address, just to say thank you for listening to the podcast and a chance for you to connect with some of your listeners.
Well, great.
Nice and generous of you. Thank you.
Thank
My
you for
pleasure.
that. Well, we'll be sure to put that website in the notes for this episode. Thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure. It was wonderful.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that interview with Robert as much as we enjoyed interviewing him.
Yeah.
And we hope you take advantage of his offer. So, the first couple of you who write to him, get that free book.
Absolutely.
Nobody cares. I love until they do.
Yeah. Well, nobody cares until you do.
Until you do, right.
It's not nobody cares until you do.
Right.
I mean, actually, both of those I think are valid interpretations. But his point was nobody cares until you do yourself,
Right,
and
that's right.
then you can actually make things happen. And there's something to that.
Absolutely.
So and speaking of books, check out our books too. You know what our books are. If you watched this far, you know what our books are. Go buy them. They're good books, by golly, in my humble opinion.
Absolutely.
And as I mentioned in the intro, do tell people about the podcast. Spread the word. We've been doing
Rate
this
us,
now.
follow us.
We're
Yes.
doing it over 4 years and having a lot of fun doing it.
Well, not over 4 years.
4.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Or not
That's
quite
right.
4.5.
We're going to be
but
coming up on 5 years.
we're going to be coming up on 5 years next,
next
April or
July,
May or
June?
July. I don't know what it was.
Something around there.
Whenever it was. Anyway.
That's right. 4 years already. Wow.
Yeah, we have a bachelor's in podcast. We're working on graduate school now. So do tell folks. And so until next time,
Remember, be kind
don't panic.
and have faith.